It had been 500,000 years since humanity disappeared from the face of the Earth. The once thriving civilization, full of wonder and technology, had been wiped away in a mysterious event. To most of the galaxy, Earth was a forgotten world, a distant memory lost in the dust of time. Only old stories told by the oldest civilizations hinted at what once was. Far from Earth, in the deep reaches of space, an alien scout fleet cruised quietly through the stars. The Galactic Empire, an alliance of powerful species, had long since abandoned any interest in the planet. It was marked as a failed world, its people nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. The fleet moved slowly, scanning nearby systems for resources. Their ships were sleek and efficient, designed for quick exploration and reconnaissance. But today, something strange caught their sensors. A signal. It was faint but unmistakable. The scout captain, a creature known as Sailor, leaned forward in his command chair. The signal was coming from the planet Earth, a world the Empire had long since forgotten. "Captain," one of the officers said hesitantly, "it's Earth. There's something still alive down there." Sailor stared at the readouts in disbelief. Earth had been dead for centuries, its human inhabitants nothing but a distant memory. The signal was weak, barely a whisper, but it was definitely coming from the surface of the planet. "Send a request for more data," Sailor ordered, trying to make sense of it. "We need to know what's down there." As the ship's sensors honed in on the planet, the picture began to form. The surface was not as desolate as expected. While most of the planet appeared barren, there were faint energy signatures in the atmosphere, strange and unfamiliar. They didn't match anything in the Empire's records. For a moment, Sailor felt a strange unease creeping up his spine. It was as if something was watching them from far below. "What do you think it is, Captain?" the officer asked, his voice low with suspicion. "I don't know," Sailor replied, his mind racing. "But it's worth investigating." With a soft hum, the scout ship changed course, heading towards Earth. The closer they got, the more the readings intensified. The energy signatures were coming from orbit, and it wasn't just one. There were multiple sources spread across the planet's atmosphere, forming a strange web-like pattern. Something had been left behind on Earth, something powerful. The ship's systems buzzed with the unfamiliar readings, but no one could pinpoint exactly what they were. "We're entering the atmosphere," another officer reported, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and fear. "The signals are getting stronger." Sailor's thoughts raced as he looked out the viewport. From space, Earth appeared just as it had in the old records, cracked, scared, and barren. But now, something had changed. The ships in orbit, massive, intricate vessels, looked nothing like the rusted relics they had been told to expect. These ships were active, their engines pulsing with life, their forms sleek and sharp against the backdrop of a dying world. "They've survived," Sailor muttered under his breath. "How could they still be operational?" The ship descended slowly, its hull glinting in the dying light of the sun. The massive fleet of warships above Earth's surface came into full view, and the alien scout officers exchanged nervous glances. These weren't the abandoned relics they expected to find. These ships were a force to be reckoned with, their weapon systems still intact. The Earth's fleet hadn't just survived for 500,000 years. It had thrived in silence. Sailor's voice broke the silence. "Prepare for close inspection," he ordered, his tone now firm with authority. "We're about to find out exactly what humanity left behind." As the scout ship lowered towards Earth, the energy signals reached their peak. It was as though the very planet was alive, its core still pulsing with something far beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. For a moment, Sailor felt a strange vibration in his chest, as if the planet itself was speaking to them, warning them. But no one on the ship could understand the message. "What is it?" the officer asked, unable to hide the fear in her voice. "I don't know," Sailor said, his gaze fixed on the fleet above. "But whatever it is, we have to be prepared." Something about this is different. The ship continued its descent, nearing the massive warships suspended in orbit. But as they drew closer, something changed. A soft hum, faint but unmistakable, began to echo through the ship's hull. It was a sound like no other, a sound that sent a chill down every alien spine. It was a warning. A voice, ancient and powerful, echoed across the ship's communication system, an old human transmission crackling through the static. The words were distorted, but the message was clear. Leave now, or you will never leave. The scouts froze, a deep sense of dread filling the air. The fleet had only just arrived, but they already felt the weight of the unspoken threat. Something was waiting for them on Earth, and whatever it wasn't ready to let them leave. The hum of the ship's engines became deafening, and the eerie message continued to echo in the ship's comm system. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They were seasoned explorers and warriors, accustomed to the vastness of the galaxy. But this felt different. There was an ancient weight to the words, a sense of danger in the air that none of them had experienced before. Zelor, the captain of the scout fleet, remained calm. But even he couldn't ignore the unease creeping into his mind. Earth had always been a forgotten planet, reduced to a myth, its humans thought to be long extinct. Yet, here they were, hearing an unmistakable warning from the very people they believed to be gone forever. "Captain, should we proceed?" one of the officers asked, his voice trembling slightly as he looked at the growing fleet of Earth's warships in the distance. Zelor took a deep breath. His fingers hovered over the ship's controls, his mind racing. He had always been cautious, ruthless when necessary, but this was different. This wasn't an unknown enemy they could destroy. This was humanity, or what remained of it, a species they had underestimated for millennia. The voice over the comm system was proof of that. "We're here," Xaylor said finally, his voice steady but edged with uncertainty. "We came for answers, and we're going to get them." He turned to the officer who was handling the ship's communications. "Try to pinpoint the origin of that transmission," he ordered. "It came from the planet's surface, but we need to know where. Whoever sent that message is still there." The officer nodded and immediately began working on the ship's systems, attempting to isolate the transmission source. The seconds stretched into minutes as the tension aboard the ship grew. Outside, the fleet of Earth's warships loomed larger and larger, their enormous silhouettes casting long shadows across the surface of the planet. The ships were sleek and advanced, clearly far more sophisticated than anything the Galactic Empire had expected to find. And yet, they appeared dormant, suspended in orbit, as if waiting for something. "Captain, I have it," the officer called out, breaking the heavy silence. The transmission originated from a structure on the planet's surface. It's an old military base, or at least it looks like one. Zaller's eyes narrowed as he stared at the data scrolling across the screen. The base wasn't just old, it was ancient, built long before the Empire had even begun to expand its borders. This was a relic from humanity's past, but it was still operational, still sending out signals. His instincts told him something important was happening here. "Prepare to land," Zaller ordered, his voice sharper now. "Take us down to that base." The ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, the atmosphere thick with the weight of the unknown. As they neared the surface, Zadler couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The strange energy readings intensified, pulsing like a heartbeat, almost as if the planet itself was alive and aware of their presence. "Captain, the fleet's still in position," the officer reported. "They're not moving. They're just waiting." Zaylor glanced at the massive warships still hanging above Earth like ominous sentinels. Something was very wrong. The more he looked at the fleet, the more the reality of the situation began to sink in. Earth wasn't just a forgotten world. It had been hidden for a reason. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed as weak by the galaxy's most powerful races. But now, as the scouts descended toward the planet, they were starting to realize just how wrong they had been. The ship's sensors beeped urgently, signaling that they were nearing the base. It was located in a desolate region of the planet, a vast wasteland of craters and ruined cities. The area was dead, lifeless. Yet, as they drew closer to the base, there was a faint glow coming from within its depths, a signal pulsing from below the surface. Zeller's heart rate quickened. The last thing he wanted was to be lured into a trap. But the allure of discovering what humanity had left behind was too strong. They had been warned, but what if this was just the beginning? What if the human legacy was far more powerful than they could ever imagine? "Land us outside the perimeter," Zeller instructed, standing up from his seat. "We'll go in on foot. Keep the ship ready for an immediate departure." The officers nodded, their eyes filled with uncertainty. As the ship descended further, the structures on the surface of Earth grew clearer. The ancient base was massive, with high walls and towers that had once held weapons capable of defending the planet. Now those weapons lay dormant, their power long forgotten. Or so they thought. "Captain, I'm picking up strange energy readings from within the base," the officer said. "There's something down there, something we can't identify." Zeller's gaze hardened. "Stay alert. This may be more dangerous than we thought." As the ship touched down softly on the ground, Zeller felt a chill creep up his spine. The base before him seemed frozen in time, as though waiting for something. The air around them was thick with the unknown. They had come seeking answers, but the deeper they went, the more the answers seemed to elude them. One thing was certain: they were not alone. And whatever was waiting for them on Earth, it was far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. As the scout team stepped out of the ship, the air felt unusually heavy, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The ground beneath their boots was cracked and barren, a desolate reminder of Earth's troubled past. Yet there was something undeniably powerful in the silence, an energy pulsing faintly through the air that sent shivers down their spines. Zeller surveyed the surroundings, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. The base ahead loomed ominously, its towering structure almost completely hidden by the ruins of forgotten cities and lifeless landscapes. The once majestic buildings had crumbled to dust, but there was still a presence here, something they couldn't explain. "Stay sharp," Zeller ordered, his voice steady but taut with tension. "We don't know what we're walking into. This place hasn't seen life in 500,000 years, or so we thought." The team moved forward cautiously, their boots crunching on the brittle ground. The air felt unnaturally still. No wildlife, no sounds of wind or distant storms. It was as if the planet itself had been abandoned, yet the eerie hum of power from deep within the base continued to draw them closer. As they approached the entrance, the massive doors of the facility creaked open, seemingly of their own accord, as if the base had been waiting for them. The doors revealed a long, dimly lit corridor, its walls lined with strange markings and faded signs that Zeller couldn't decipher. "Is anyone else feeling that?" one of the officers whispered, his voice shaky as he scanned the dark corridor. "The temperature is dropping rapidly." Zeller didn't reply immediately, his focus trained on the path ahead. The temperature had indeed dropped, but that wasn't the only thing bothering him. The energy readings were growing stronger, more intense, as if something inside was awakening. Without a word, he signaled for the team to proceed inside. As they moved deeper into the base, they encountered signs of humanity's once great civilization. Old holograms flickering with faint images of soldiers in battle, technological wonders beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered, and artifacts whose purpose remained a mystery. But something was wrong. Every corner of the base felt off. It was as if the walls themselves were watching them, waiting for something. Then suddenly, a loud low hum filled the air, echoing through the halls like a warning. The lights above flickered, casting long shadows that danced unnaturally along the walls. Zeller's instincts screamed at him to leave, but he couldn't. They had come this far, and the truth was just out of reach. "Captain," one of the officers cried out, pointing toward a large chamber ahead. "Look, There's something in there. Zaller's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with rows upon rows of long-forgotten technology. But in the center of the room stood a massive, glowing object, something unlike anything he had ever seen. It was a ship, or at least what remained of one. Its exterior was sleek, yet worn by time. It pulsed with energy, its surface covered in strange symbols that Sailor couldn't decipher. The hum of its power reverberated through the air, and the closer they got, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. The officer who had spoken earlier stepped closer to the ship, reaching out a hand as if drawn by some invisible force. "Careful," Sailor warned, his voice stern. "We don't know what this is." But it was too late. As the officer's hand made contact with the ship, a surge of energy shot through the room, lighting up the entire base. The ship's power systems roared to life, and the walls seemed to shake in response. Suddenly, the hum turned into a voice, a deep, resonant sound that echoed through the chamber. "You have awakened us," the voice said, its tone both ancient and authoritative. "Humanity's wrath has been forgotten. Until now." Zaller's blood ran cold. The voice was unmistakably human. But this wasn't a simple message from Earth. This was something far more dangerous. This was a warning. The ship before them began to glow brighter, and in an instant, the air was charged with energy. The entire base seemed to come alive, as if it had been dormant for centuries, only to be awakened by the presence of these alien intruders. We didn't know," one of the officers stammered, backing away from the ship. "We didn't know humanity was still out here." But it was too late for regrets. The ship's engines hummed louder, and the energy pulses intensified. There was no turning back now. Humanity's hidden fleet had been activated, and the galaxy would soon learn that Earth had been lying in wait for far longer than anyone could have imagined. Zalor turned to his team, his face set in grim determination. "Prepare for the worst," he said quietly. "The humans may have been gone, but their power has never truly faded." As the first ripple of energy surged from the ship, Zalor knew one thing for certain. Earth was not a forgotten planet, and whatever humanity had left behind, it was powerful beyond measure. The galaxy was about to witness the true might of a species it had long underestimated. The massive chamber trembled as the energy from the ship pulsated through the air, resonating with an intensity that shook every corner of the ancient base. Sadler and his team braced themselves, their bodies tense as the ship's hum grew louder. The voice that had echoed through the walls earlier now seemed to come from every direction, its deep and commanding tone vibrating in their bones. "You have awakened us," it said once more, its power undeniable. "The long sleep is over, and so is your time." The message was chilling. There was no hint of negotiation, no mercy in the voice. It was the voice of a civilization that had been waiting for the right moment to rise again. Zaller's heart raced. He had heard rumors of ancient, hidden fleets on Earth, but nothing prepared him for the reality before him. The ship, no, the fleet, was alive, and it was ready to strike. "Get back to the shuttle," Zalor barked, his voice strained. "We need to leave now." But the team was frozen in place, eyes wide with disbelief. The power emanating from the ship was overwhelming. No one had ever seen anything like it. The energy was alive, ancient, and potent. It had been dormant for centuries, but now it was awake, and the galaxy would feel its wrath. The officer closest to the ship, the one who had touched the surface, was the first to react, stumbling backward. What is this? It's like the ship is breathing. It's reacting to us." Zalor grabbed him by the arm, shaking him from his stupor. "We don't have time for questions. Get moving now." But as they turned to flee, a sudden, violent jolt of energy slammed into the walls around them. The lights flickered and died, and the air itself seemed to ripple with power. The voice spoke again, its tone laced with fury. "Your attempt to flee will be futile. You have triggered the awakening of Earth's final defense. Zalor's stomach sank. The ship wasn't just a relic. It was part of a much larger network. Earth's hidden fleet. The ship he had just seen wasn't alone. There were thousands, no, millions, more scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting for the moment that they would rise again. The crew scrambled to regain control, rushing toward the exit, but the base itself seemed to fight them every step of the way. The doors that had once opened so easily now slammed shut with an enormous force. The walls groaned and shifted, as though the very structure of the base was aligning itself to some unknown purpose. "Captain," one of the officers shouted in panic, looking back over his shoulder. "The ship is moving. It's going to launch." Zalor's eyes widened in realization. It's not just a ship. It's a command center. The fleet is responding to it. The base trembled once more, and suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled. It wasn't an earthquake. It was something far worse, something intentional. The ship, along with the others hidden across the planet, had begun to activate its systems. They were preparing for something far greater than anyone had ever anticipated. "Everyone now," Zalor ordered, his voice fierce with authority. He didn't know how much time they had left, but the urgency was clear. The awakening of Earth's fleet meant war, and once the fleet was operational, no one, not even the Galactic Empire, would stand a chance. The team reached the exit just as the doors began to open. They spilled out into the open air, their breaths ragged from the adrenaline coursing through their veins. But there was no relief. The sky above them was darkened by the sheer scale of the fleet's awakening. In the distance, massive structures began to rise from the ground. Giant warships, their metal exteriors gleaming in the faint light. It was a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zalor turned to face his team. His mind raced, calculating the impossible odds they now faced. Earth had hidden its fleet away for centuries, and now it had been unleashed. "We need to warn the others," Zalor said, his voice grim. "We've triggered something far beyond our control." The officers were silent, but they all knew what this meant. Earth's power had been underestimated for far too long. Now the galaxy would know the truth. Humanity had returned, and with its fleet rising from the ashes of a forgotten past, there was no force in the universe that could stop it. As Zalor and his team watched in awe and terror, the first warship lifted into the sky, its engines roaring to life. The fleet was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The awakening had begun, and with it, humanity's vengeance was about to unfold. The sight of the warships rising from Earth's surface was beyond anything Zalor and his team had imagined. The metal giants, once dormant for centuries, were now awakening to fulfill their original purpose. As the first ship broke free from its underground silo, its massive engines roared to life, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. Zalor stood frozen, eyes locked on the colossal vessel as it ascended into the skies, its sleek metallic body shimmering in the faint light. It was as though the Earth itself had come alive, responding to a call that had been dormant for eons. The massive fleet, scattered across the globe in secret locations, was now beginning to mobilize. "Captain, we need to act fast," one of the officers said, his voice tense. "This is no longer just a discovery. This is a declaration of war." Zalor snapped out of his trance, his mind racing to catch up with the unfolding chaos. "We need to contact the Galactic Council. They won't believe us. They'll think this is some kind of trap." The officer looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "The Council, they'll never take us seriously. They'll see Earth as a threat, and if the fleet is anything like what we've just seen—" "We don't have a choice," Zalor interjected. "We've just awakened the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. They will not hesitate to use it." The officers were silent for a moment, their eyes shifting between the rising warships and Zalor's determined gaze. It was clear that they were no longer just explorers or diplomats. They had inadvertently unleashed a force far beyond their comprehension. "We have to find a way to stop them before it's too late," the officer beside Zalor said, his voice urgent. But Sailor knew it was already too late. The fleet was rising, and there was no stopping it now. The ships weren't just responding to the signals they had triggered. They were activated by a deeper, ancient program. Earth's fleet had been designed for one purpose: to defend the planet and its people at all costs. And now that they were awake, they were not going to stand idle. Sailor could feel the ground rumble beneath his feet as more warships lifted into the air. The massive formations of ships appeared to stretch on forever, each one more imposing than the last. They were rising, ready for war, and the rest of the galaxy would soon feel their wrath. We have to warn the Council. We need to tell them that the fleet is not just a weapon. It's a message, Sailor said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Humanity has not just returned. They've come to reclaim what was lost. The officers nodded, but the uncertainty in their eyes spoke volumes. The fleet they were witnessing now was only the beginning. There were millions more warships waiting to be activated, hidden across the Earth, in places no one had ever dared to look. Sailor turned back to the sky, watching as the last of the warships broke through the clouds. His mind raced, considering their options. They had triggered a chain of events that no one could have predicted. They were now witnessing the birth of a new era, one in which Earth would no longer cower in the shadows. "What is their plan, Captain?" one of the officers asked quietly. Sailor's eyes narrowed. "It's simple. Earth has been silent for too long. Humanity has been underestimated for centuries. And now they are ready to show the galaxy what they are truly capable of." As the last ship lifted into the sky, the full scale of the fleet was revealed. The once hidden vessels, sleek, powerful, and seemingly indestructible, were now forming a massive armada above the Earth's atmosphere. Their engines hummed with life, each one ready to respond to the next order. In that moment, Sailor understood the magnitude of what they had set in motion. This was no longer just a fleet of warships. It was a statement, a declaration of power, a warning to anyone who dared to challenge humanity. "Prepare the communication channels," Sailor ordered, his voice steely with resolve. It's time the galaxy learned who we really are. But as he turned to face his team, something shifted in the air. A sudden, deep hum vibrated through the ground, sending a shockwave of energy into the sky. The fleet wasn't just waiting for orders. It had already begun its march. Sailor felt the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was no going back now. The galaxy would soon know that humanity was no longer weak. It was a force to be reckoned with, and anyone who dared to underestimate Earth's wrath would soon regret it. "Let them come," Sailor muttered under his breath. "We're ready." And as the fleet soared into the stars, Sailor knew that humanity's vengeance had only just begun. The galaxy would never be the same again. The communication signals buzzed on Sailor's console, flashing rapidly in red. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived. The time for warnings, threats, or silence was over. Now, humanity had revealed itself as more than just an unsuspecting species. It had shown its power, its readiness for war. Sailor stared at the flashing console, hesitating for a moment. He had warned them. He had tried to tell the Council that the fleet was no joke, that it wasn't just a dormant relic of humanity's forgotten past. It was an active, deadly force. And now the galaxy would know its wrath. "Open the channel," Sailor ordered, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. The implications of what they were about to hear were massive. No one in the Council had ever taken humanity seriously before. They had all believed that Earth was weak, vulnerable, easy to control. But now, with the fleet poised to strike, they would have to face a new reality. The holographic screen flickered to life, and a stern, tall figure appeared before Sailor. It was Vornak, the head of the Galactic Council. His icy blue eyes glowed with intensity, his expression hard to read. The Council had sent its strongest representative, and his presence alone was a sign that they weren't taking this lightly. "Sailor, explain yourself." Vornak's voice boomed, carrying the weight of centuries of authority. "What have you done?" The signals we've detected, those ships, they are a direct violation of galactic law. You've broken every protocol. Thaler didn't flinch, though every word from Vornak was like a strike of thunder. He was prepared for this. Humanity's time of weakness was over. We did nothing, Zela replied firmly, his words precise. We only triggered what was already there. What you fail to understand is that Earth is not weak. Humanity is not some fragile, unarmed species. Those ships, their fleet, they'd been waiting, hidden, for centuries. And now, they're awake. The silence on the other end of the communication channel was deafening. The council members, sitting in the vast chamber on the other side of the galaxy, were stunned into disbelief. They had always seen humanity as insignificant, a small, fragile species struggling to survive on a dying planet. They had no idea what Earth had been hiding beneath the surface. Vornak's cold expression shifted slightly, though his voice remained steely. You expect us to believe this? That after 500,000 years, you've somehow managed to keep a fleet of warships hidden? This is beyond logic, Zela. This is a direct challenge to the order of the galaxy. It's not a challenge, Zela shot back. It's a warning. Humanity has always been underestimated. Now you'll learn what happens when you push us too far. The fleet is activated and ready. The entire galaxy will see the power we possess. Vornak's eyes narrowed, his expression hardening. You think you can scare us? Do you think your fleet can take on the entirety of the Galactic Council? We're not afraid of you, Zela said, his words sharp. You've forgotten that Earth is not like the rest of the galaxy. We're a species of survivors, and we've always been underestimated. Your mistake is thinking that Earth was just another weak planet. You're wrong. And now you'll have to deal with the consequences. Another long silence filled the air as Vornak weighed his response. Finally, he spoke, his voice betraying a hint of frustration. You may have awakened your fleet, Zela, but don't mistake this for victory. You may have the strength of machines, but we have the unity of the galaxy behind us. We will crush you and your rebellion before it even begins. Zela could feel the tension building, but he didn't back down. He understood the weight of their threats, but he also knew that humanity was not a species that could be easily crushed. Earth had been pushed to its limits. Now, it was time to show the galaxy that humanity was not a planet to be ignored any longer. Let's see who will be crushed first, Zela replied, his voice filled with resolve. He ended the communication, knowing the council would not take this lightly. This was only the beginning, and the fate of humanity rested in their hands. There was no going back now. Prepare the fleet, Zela ordered, his eyes scanning the holographic display of Earth's warships now stationed in orbit. We've sent our message. Let's see if the galaxy is ready for the consequences. Outside, the sky was filled with the hum of engines, the fleet soaring higher and higher, awaiting their orders. The once silent fleet of Earth had come to life, and it was more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. It had been dormant for centuries, but now, with the world at stake, humanity was ready to unleash its fury. Zela stood at the helm of Earth's defense, watching as the ships climbed into the heavens, preparing for war. The galaxy would never be the same. The silence of space was deafening. As Earth's fleet powered up, the vast expanse of the galaxy stretched before them, a battlefield waiting to be ignited. Zela stood at the bridge, watching as the fleet's massive warships lined up in formation. His mind raced. What had started as a desperate act of defiance now felt like something much larger, something unstoppable. The ships were more than just machines of war. They were a testament to humanity's resilience, their ingenuity, and their unyielding spirit. For centuries, the galaxy had looked at Earth with disdain, underestimating the species that had once been confined to a single planet. But now, with the flick of a switch, the universe would understand the true power of humanity. Zela was ready, but was the galaxy? The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth's potential for far too long. And now, They would face the consequences of their arrogance. No amount of diplomacy or threat could stop what was coming. The fleet was a living, breathing testament to humanity's might and its wrath. A new transmission buzzed through the comms, this time from an unlikely source, one of the Galactic Council's own. The voice on the other end was calm, almost soothing, but Sailor knew better than to trust it. "This is Commander Zaron of the Galactic Coalition," the voice announced. "You've made your point, Sailor. Your fleet is impressive. But I must remind you that this is not just a fight between Earth and the Council. There are many powerful factions in the galaxy that will join forces if this war continues." Sailor leaned forward, his hand resting on the console as he listened to the message. He understood the threat, but he wasn't afraid. "We're ready for whatever comes," Sailor replied, his voice steady. "We've been preparing for centuries. The galaxy doesn't know the meaning of true war yet, but we will teach them." The transmission cut off abruptly. Sailor's eyes flickered toward the holotable, where Earth's fleet was displayed, each warship now locked in position and awaiting orders. The time had come. The war wasn't just about defeating the Galactic Council. It was about sending a message to every species in the galaxy. Humans were no longer the weak, insignificant creatures they had once been. They were a force to be reckoned with, and anyone who dared threaten them would pay the price. Suddenly, a new signal came through, this time from the outer regions of the galaxy. The message was simple, but it sent chills through Sailor's spine. "Humanity, prepare to face the wrath of the galaxy." Sailor didn't flinch. The message wasn't a threat. It was a promise, a challenge. And if there was one thing humanity had never backed down from, it was a challenge. As the fleet prepared to move out, the holographic map of the galaxy shifted, showing the locations of the Council's armadas. They were mobilizing, and it wouldn't be long before the first battle began. Sailor knew that Earth's fleet had the element of surprise on its side, but this was only the beginning. The battle for Earth's future, and for humanity's place in the galaxy, was far from over. The warships fired their engines, and the fleet surged forward, a wave of steel and fury hurtling through the void of space. The stars seemed to dim as the massive ships sped toward their target, the battle lines drawn between the humans and their would-be oppressors. The first wave of galactic ships appeared on the horizon, but they were not prepared for what awaited them. Sailor's eyes gleamed as he watched the first salvo fired from Earth's fleet. The weapons were far more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. Humanity's secret had always been its ingenuity, and now it was paying off in ways no one could have predicted. The blasts from Earth's warships tore through space like lightning, hitting their targets with precision and force. The first few enemy ships were destroyed before they even had a chance to react. The message was clear. Earth wasn't here to negotiate. They were here to dominate. A massive explosion rocked the battlefield as one of the galactic ships was obliterated in a single shot. The sheer power of Earth's weapons was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Sailor could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins as the fleet continued to unleash hell upon the invaders. One by one, the galactic ships fell. The battle was swift, brutal, and relentless. Humanity's fleet was like a tidal wave, crashing against the forces of the galaxy with the fury of centuries of oppression. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake by underestimating Earth, and now they would pay the price. But as the last enemy ship fell, the aftermath of the battle was only just beginning. The galaxy was watching. The message had been sent, but would it be enough to secure humanity's place in the universe? Would the galaxy bow before Earth, or would they rise against it? As Earth's fleet soared back toward their home planet, Sailor knew one thing. Humanity had proven itself. The war for survival was far from over, but for the first time, humanity had shown the galaxy that it was no longer the prey. It was the predator. And the universe would never forget.